before we begin, we want to share that we will be recording tonight's meeting. We do plan to share the recording publicly in the event that a parent, staff, or community member would like to know what was discussed. If you do not wish to be recorded, please let us know at this time. Thank you.
I guess not. So we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. The first thing to call the roll. We're all here. Next will be the Pledge of Allegiance. We stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Get the flag out. All right, the next thing discussion is the 2021 board calendar 2021 public requests. First thing is the board calendar. This is an ongoing target. Things changes because of the COVID, so it's an ongoing target. We have some things that has to be reported to us by law, and some things we request. Any discussion on the calendar? Thank you. And if you have questions, feel free. The next thing, the public requests. I think we're at 3. And all of them have been completed. So any questions on the public request form? Hearing none, we're going to move right along.
Actually, I'm just slow with the mute button. So good jobs. It looks like we caught up on all of them.
Yes, all of them is caught up.
Excellent.
Next thing will be the first read of the board policies. It's exciting reading, so I'm sure everybody had a chance to go through these. It's a good weekend reading with a nice cup of coffee and some donuts or something. And I see Kathy has a fireplace, so you can sit by the fire and just have at it.
That's a recipe for a nap.
Reading about.
It's a gas stove.
There's nothing better than reading about infection control in schools.
Yeah. Good reading. Wow. If we have any questions, then we'll come back for a second, and then we'll vote on the changes. If you have any questions, feel free. Something needs to come up, feel free to email Bonnie and Tony, and they will get you the answer. Any questions on that?
No.
Nope. All righty. I'm going to have the first read on Ms. Carey, School Board Operation Principles. Everybody got a copy? Thank you, Carey. I want to appreciate you. Done a very good job on that. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I think I got everybody's changes incorporated. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to read it.
Yes, you did a lovely job.
Love it, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work in a short time of getting it done. I appreciate it.
And it's great that we all got together and we did that. That's ours.
Yeah.
Not hearing anything, it's going to come back again for a second reading and a vote on that. So we're going to move right along. We have a report from Steve. Is this from Steve? Yeah. On emotional learning and behavior support.
Yes, thank you. Both Dr. Willis and I are prepared to bring this forward to you guys tonight. As you, in your workshop that you had over the summer, you identified a topic for each of the board work sessions that you'd like to have a little bit more information on. And so we are prepared to discuss with you tonight what we do around social emotional learning in the Orting School District. As I'm sure you are acutely aware, social emotional learning is a big deal, and it has become an essential deal in our current COVID environment. And in fact, it's become a part of almost every conversation that I've been having with principals, and really looking at what it is that we offer and what it is that our structure looks like. And so Chris has actually the work that you see in here in terms of the framework for our social emotional learning is really Chris's fingerprints on it. So I'm gonna ask him to kind of share his insights on that with you, and then I will talk a little bit about what that framework looks like in our current situation, and what we're also doing in relationship to that. So, Dr. Willis.
Well, thanks, Kathy, for that. I deserve it. Yes, I think they should give doctorates for experience. So I totally agree with that. With 30 some years, but thank you. I appreciate that thumbs up for me. So thank you for just you've read the framework, and so I would just want to kind of give you some feedback and some description of what we've done over the past 4 years. 2 years ago, we aligned our social emotional learning, our K-5 social emotional cell standards to our current second step curriculum. Our second step curriculum is from K-5. There is a preschool version. We don't utilize the preschool version, and we don't use the secondary version at this point. But for K-5, we have all the curriculum. It's all aligned to the state standards, and the teachers and the counselors are responsible for implementation of that. Specifically, and not necessarily most importantly, the harassment, intimidation, and bullying curriculum that we do each year. The other part is around the kindergarten screening and the WAKIDS. Each year, our kindergartners, and this year is no exception, all of our kindergartners are screened. We've had one teacher. We had a brand new kindergarten teacher at OPS. She's the one that was trained this year. We do receive some additional funding when we train our teachers. And so all of our kindergarten teachers are trained in implementation and the screening of kids using WAKIDS. In regards to the mental health counseling piece, this has been a real challenge. This year. We have 3 now. 3, you only had 2 on your paper, but we just entered into another agreement with Consejo. But we have it with Comprehensive Life Resources out of Tacoma, Multicare Behavioral Health out of Puyallup, and Consejo out of Graham. And so one of the things that's been a challenge in this area and during this time is the child find. And right now, we only have 2 students receiving our mental health therapy right now. And I'll tell you the different challenges. The first challenge is actually finding the kids that need it. The second challenge is the confidentiality, especially for our 13 and over. They have to sign off on it. And a lot of our families, a lot of our kids over 13 do not need parent permission to be able to receive the therapy. And so being in the home with a Chromebook is not necessarily, it's not confidential. And then the third piece is we've had a lot of, and we've fixed this. So last March, we ran into trouble with the portals that the mental health therapy was using. We've remedied the portal problems in regards to the technology. And so because every single mental health agency uses a different methodology. Multicare Behavioral Health uses a very extensive process, similar to what doctors use, because it's a national brand. Comprehensive Life Resources uses Zoom, and so we had to allow access to Zoom. And Consejo, I believe, uses Zoom as well. And so the other part is allowing outside emails for our kids, because they need to be not texted, but emailed by the therapist. Our system didn't allow outside emails into our system, so we had to resolve that as well. So there's these little things that are creating have created some barriers, but the number one barrier, and then there's also the Medicaid piece. But this time last year, we had 38 kids receiving therapy. So the Medicaid piece really isn't the reason. It's really about locating the students. So what we've done is actually, in the past, we really didn't advertise to families. It came down to the counselors talking to the families, talking to the student. They knew the students. They worked with the families in order to kind of link them up. We've began actually letting families know that these services are available. We're going to be putting it into our this week, starting tomorrow. We're going to be starting putting this information into our newsletters, letting families know that these services are available through these outside agencies, and that we're kind of honestly we're going to be utilizing the families as resource referrals. Because right now I talked to Comprehensive Life Resources yesterday. Maybe it was today, I don't remember. Yesterday, and they're averaging 2 students per building in Tacoma. And so we're not the only ones that are struggling to locate the students. Even in big systems like Tacoma, they're struggling to find kids. And they're actually, what we're finding is the need is increasing, but the staffing is decreasing in our mental health agencies because there isn't the clientele. And so it's really a bind right now locating the students. We had threat assessment training in October. We had all the new staff receive threat assessment training through our Puget Sound ESD. And so we had several, 2 psychologists and vice principal and 2 school counselors, that received the training from the ESD regarding the threat assessment training. And, people are saying, well, why would you do threat assessment training? There's been lots of significant issues related to online learning and the threats of violence through online learning. And so it's important that our staff continue to be trained on that.
You mean there's been threats in Orting or in general?
In general. And so, no, we haven't had any yet. We haven't done, last year we did 8 threat assessments. And honestly, George, one of the great things about the fact it really facilitated a conversation with the families, and it ended up really solving a significant numbers of problems for the kids, and the families felt supported through the entire process. Because you can imagine, hey, by the way, we're going to do a threat assessment. You as a parent would go, whoa. And so, but when they got into the process, when we had a facilitated conversation, the students ended up getting the support and support they needed in the school. And so, so far this year, we've been lucky that we haven't had an opportunity to do that. But last year we did 8 threat assessments, and I can tell you right now, every single one of them, and I was a naysayer because I really worried about doing threat assessments as a school district, but it's a team approach, and I facilitate all of them. And the reason why is that I'm an outside person versus having an inside person facilitate them. Couple
Hey,
more.
Chris,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to say, having been a teacher, I understand how great it is for the staff that you already have a process in place so that if a crisis arises, you know what to do. It's like having practiced the fire drill, because if you don't have that set up and there's a crisis, that's a hard time to come up with that. So
No,
thank you. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it actually, what it does is, thank you. What it does is it number one, the teachers feel supported because their concerns are being listened to. The family, not in the beginning, the family by the end of the process, it goes, gosh, you know something? This process really was supportive of my child. It's about keeping the child in school. It's not about getting the student out of school, because they see it as initially about getting the kid out. It's about getting the kid in. And so they discovered that very quickly. Right response training, for those of you who don't know about it, right response training is your de-escalation training. That's been a real challenge. Kathy, you asked the question about how do you do that virtually. Basically, we do 2/3 of it, 2/3 of the training virtually, and then we do a lot of modeling outside in regards to the restraint. Here's the part that everyone needs to know. The focus of it is on de-escalation. The focus is on supporting the student. The focus is not on holding a kid. And so if we have to hold a kid in order to keep them safe, we'll do that. But a majority of the training is about de-escalation and responding to a student in crisis. The last thing I want to, I suppose it's the last thing, parent training. One of the things that we've discovered is that parent training has become a big deal right now. And so right now we've entered in an agreement with the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department to provide positive parenting program. It's all done online. It's done at parents' pace. Our Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, within the first month, gave out over 600 codes to the training. And they've asked for additional codes. They did ask for 1,000 per district. We'll never use 1,000, but I said, well, whatever. You guys are paying for it, I guess. And so, but we will be receiving codes in order to hand out to our families who want this program. The second one we're doing in November and January. We're also doing positive discipline for families of kids who are preschool through first grade. And then the last thing is our flight team. We were supposed to meet tomorrow, but we're meeting in 3 weeks in regards to getting people all aligned regarding a flight team. The flight team is generally for crisis incidents such as a suicide or a crisis in the community. Several years ago, a family was murdered. Do you remember that, Kathy? Well, that flight team came together and the community came together, and we have a process in place in the school district run by Shelley Smith out of the high school to lead that charge. And so we have that flight team to do that. So I think that's it. You can read the rest of it. I think I hit all the major points. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff I did? Or not I did, I led, or I worked with, or I had the team work on?
No question, just a comment on the mental health. I want to make sure that we're on top of that, because what's going on in the world today is affecting a lot of people. And I don't want the kiddos to just don't believe we're there for them. Whatever we need to do, we got to do.
And you know what? I agree. And Stanley, and there is a general concern in the school community and our community as a whole. And so I just want to let you know is that, number one, this is not isolated to us, but we can't wait for the kids to come to us. We have to kind of dig through and dig to the families and take some chances and come out and say, you know what, I think your kid needs this. And we can't be, honestly, it's not a time where we're going to, I'm not going to use politically correct, but where it's about being very aggressive with our approach to make sure that kids are getting what they need. And honestly, we've been very used to having the kids come to us and the families come to us. It's time for us to go to the families and to the kids. And that's why we're starting with some marketing with our newsletters and getting the information out that we actually have this available for our students. So I agree. 2 kids. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me that we would only have 2 kids district wide.
When you say in your newsletter, do you just mean the special ed newsletter, or do you mean all the district? Okay.
Yeah,
good,
the whole
good,
district. Yep,
good.
It's the whole district. It'll be going out in the school newsletters.
Good.
Perfect.
So my
Chris?
question in transition, Chris, is the meeting tomorrow got canceled. So is that the same thing as the flight got canceled?
The flight team
Got
organizational.
rescheduled, so the flight got canceled? It's just another COVID. Yeah.
Right. I don't know what you're talking about, but that's okay.
The flight team meeting got canceled, so the flight got canceled,
Right.
and that's a COVID consequence, right?
You're right. You're right. I'm getting it now. Okay. You had a question, Carrie?
Yeah. First of all, I'm really glad you're putting this out in the community newsletters. I'm also curious if it's already there, forgive me, I didn't go looking for it, but if this information or some kind of summary thereof is available on our website also for families.
Well, here's where I've kept it. I've kept it on the Student Support Services website. It's been there for the last 4 years. I mean, we can move it.
Didn't know that.
We can move it up the fray, like in the beginning, because right now it's always been there as part of student support. But honestly, the only people that are looking at student support are people that are looking. It's not that they're staring you right in the face. So
it'd be cool if it was on the ticker, on the homepage or something that would elevate it. And then my second question / comment is, I feel like this is a wide net that we have to catch students and provide them services. And I am concerned that we're only reaching 2 at this point, because I know there are so many more out there. And so I definitely want to get the word out and definitely do the outreach, the proactive outreach that you were talking about. I think one thing that I think about when we look at this list is these are all support services that have been developed with our kind of current paradigms of what school is and what we can provide. And that with COVID, we're going to be faced, I'm imagining, with a whole new set of challenges and different kinds of services that might be needed and different ways of reaching out to kids. So I think I would want, the takeaway for you would be that you have our support. I think for me, at least, I'm very concerned about our kids. I want to continue to see ordering services develop.
Yeah.
And so
And
if
Carrie,
there's new ideas out there, let's explore them.
And Carrie, we can't do it alone. And so one of the things I think Kathy knows about is the Ordering Support Network. And we're meeting each month. And it's going to take, just like I'll talk about holiday giving in a second, but it's really going to take us all working together because we have some new pastors in town and we have some new people that are very energetic about wanting to, whether it's from affordable housing to mental health, parent training, obviously with the Ordering Recovery Cafe. I mean, they're starting to expand their reach on supporting families and things. And so we have to do it together though, and we have to do it in a coordinated manner. And I think we're working towards that. Boy, but the minute somebody leaves, it kind of, and so it's about keeping it going and keeping the momentum going.
So, Carrie, kind of to your point and circling back around to what Stanley said about the kids, the big idea around social emotional learning in the classroom is really about developing student agency. And as you talked about our current COVID situation, here's a few of the benchmarks. Think about, George, I imagine you can relate this because you've got kids learning at home as well as Holly does as well. Here's some of the benchmarks around social emotional learning. Demonstrates awareness and understanding of one's emotions, demonstrates knowledge of personal strengths, areas for growth, demonstrates awareness and understanding of family, school, community resources and supports, demonstrates skills to manage and express one's emotions, thoughts, and impulses, and stress in constructive ways, just to name a few. Those are some of the early skills that we talk about when helping kids develop a sense of agency. And in a brick and mortar environment where they're around their peers and they're outside of their home situation and they're in the construct of a school building and a school classroom and all of the supports and all of the structures and all of the guidelines, you don't always see and know all of the different needs that they're bringing. But in this particular situation, I mean, we're currently wrestling with the expectation of whether kids should have their cameras on or not. And without their cameras on, teachers don't know necessarily whether the kids are with them. But there are kids that don't want to turn their cameras on because they're in their bedroom or they've got. We had a situation recently where a mom came out of the shower wearing a towel and trying to help her student and the towel fell off. You've got a variety of different things that you're dealing with that kids are they can't protect themselves from these things. And so we're trying to navigate those and trying to understand what those issues are and supporting kids. And getting back to what Chris was saying about the two people the two families that we had take us up on the mental health screening, we had a number of families decline that because of the reason that in the remote environment, they don't feel comfortable with having that type of a conversation that's really ultimately public in the home. And so there are restrictions that COVID, that the remote environment causes in those situations. So Chris and team are trying to work to circumvent some of those things and help support those. In our schools, how we're trying to build that sense of agency through the curriculum is, Chris mentioned that at the elementary school, second step curriculum that they utilize. We are working to make sure that the teachers that this is being taught in the schools and supported. At OPS, for example, they use the second step curriculum and some of those pieces in their morning meets with kids and in their afternoon meets with kids. We're working with PTR that's driven primarily through the counseling department, and we're working with them to actually spread that and integrate that in the classrooms. At the secondary levels, a lot of the social emotional learning aspect does fall on the counselor situation. I happened to sit in on an OHS staff meeting today, and Shelley Smith and Josh Thayer presented a very nice presentation to the staff about some very clear and quick strategies that they could identify kids of need and how they could engage them in conversations without becoming a high school counselor. That was a really good part of their staff meeting. And I know that all the schools are beginning to talk about that. And so with that, we've probably spent a little bit more time than we planned on kind of giving you this overview. I think I'll just pause and see if anybody has any questions that we can address.
Any questions?
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
So since it's the holiday, I wanted to make sure everybody got the holiday giving pamphlet. I think Bonnie put it out to everybody. And in thinking about, hey, it's important. It all has to do with mental health too. And so at the community, I realize the police department is also doing their Toys for Tots thing as well. And so, but we have all the local churches, all the Family Support Center, the Haven, who else? And so we have them all coming together, and we've organized in such a way where all the applications go through. They could go through you if you know of a family, but go through the schools and go through the Ording Food Bank. And last year we ended up giving gifts to 200 students last year through our community giving campaign, and through 70 families. And so this is a way to coordinate that. So if you know of any families in need, please send them to the school counselor. They have the applications for it. And we're doing it early so that we get all the kids possible. And so we have an opportunity to make sure that we get what the kids would like for the holidays, which is November 21st. So I know this is a tough time. Locating the families is also a challenge, but this could also help. We're talking about mental health. I'm hoping that this will be something that will uplift some of our families in need in our community.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And Steve. It's another question. You're going to move into board comments. First comment I have that Bonnie, thank you, Bonnie, has uploaded all of the winter announcements for Christmas and Thanksgiving. It's going to be some hard times for a lot of families. A lot of families have lost jobs and lost income, or income has been shrinking. If you can, and if you got people that can, give as much as you can. We have any other board members would like to comment?
I just wanted to ask Tony to kind of follow up on something. I know we talked about a month ago about waiting until after the election was over to see what was going to happen with the sex ed bill. And now that we know what's going to happen with the sex ed bill, I'd kind of like to understand what curriculum the district's looking at and how we plan to implement.
I'm not familiar with the current legislation, but if there are any individuals on our staff that are more familiar with it, please speak up. However, George, that will be something that's on our to-do list, and we'll research the information and bring it to the board for a discussion.
Yeah, I can address a little bit of that, Tony, and in anticipation of I think it's next month is our opportunity to present on that. The Proposition 90 that basically failed was an attempt to take the bill off the pages, and the bill itself mandates sex ed education all the way from kindergarten through school. It does give communities the right to determine the curriculum that they will use or won't use. They can pick between curriculum that the OSPI has already adopted, or they can identify curriculum on their own, but it has to meet the criteria that's set out by OSPI of medically accurate and so on and so forth. As I've looked at the curriculum options that OSPI has approved, I would say that the argument for the inappropriateness of this bill is ultimately based on one curriculum. And that curriculum is called the 3 R's. And it's the one that everybody references, is the one that has just the, well, let's put it this way. If we adopted that curriculum and we wanted to use the video resources in that curriculum, Matt Hunvan would have to change our permissions in terms of what we would allow on school district devices to be shown, because it doesn't meet the criteria for decency.
Wow.
So the bill itself,
That's
is,
alarming to me that that's an approved curriculum.
that's to me, and this is my commentary, my opinion, for whatever it's worth. I think that that was my number one issue with the entire bill, because I think the bill itself gives us all of the leverage and all of the control that we need to make sure that we're not putting stuff in front of our kids that we don't agree is appropriate. But just the fact that that can be approved makes me feel like that there's something else afoot that I can't quite put my finger on. And that's the part that makes me nervous. But so that you know, we have not started looking at curriculum yet. I can tell you that. I've been kind of sort of waiting on that just because I didn't know what was going to happen with this. That is a process that we need to look at, but that will ultimately be approved or disapproved by you. And it will be scrutinized by staff and community before it even gets to you. So that's kind of a Reader's Digest version of that. I'll share some more with you guys next month on that, but if you may have a specific question on it, I might be able to address it at this point.
Very well done, Steve, on the fly. Very, very well done.
Yes, thank you very much.
Also, good job on the research.
Yeah.
Follow up. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a follow up. If you have a comment on what he just said, then why don't you go first, Melissa, and then I'll follow up.
Well, I didn't know. I just kind of had two things in response to that. I too paid a lot of attention to the actual bill and kind of did some cursory research of my own. And I feel exactly as you do, Steve. I'm very dismayed at some of the stuff that was put out there, and it really caused alarm to a lot of people, thinking that that was going to be what was going to happen. So I appreciate the fact that you've dug in already and have the background that you do already on the programs, and that while we haven't made a decision, that our district is still in ultimate control of what our students will be taught from that curriculum. And I'm just going to just kind of make a general statement that we as a board will probably want to be involved as much as possible. I know you'll give us updates and stuff, but if there's a way that we can actually see the curriculum before we get to a point where we have to vote on that kind of stuff, so that we know exactly what we would have to prepare for as far as pushback or comments and things like that. I just feel like no matter what, and no matter as careful as we're going to be, and making sure that the kids are protected while still meeting the criteria, there's always going to be somebody that's going to be very unhappy. And I know that parents also have the right to opt out. But anyway, and then I don't know when the requirement has to go into effect, but with budgetary issues the way they are, is there any chance, and I know you're not going to know this, but just thinking about it, would they delay the start date of that, just to give districts a chance to get their financial footing before having to make a curriculum purchase.
Yeah, I heard that there was talk about a delay based on, if nothing else, COVID, but I suspected that that might be more about Prop 90 than it was about COVID. So we'll see how OSPI responds now that Superintendent of Public Instruction has been reelected and Prop 90 has been defeated. We'll see if they crank that up. But there was talk earlier about, with the school shut down and whatnot, and budgets and situations being what they are, that might be delayed. One of the curriculums that OSPI offers that would probably be a feasible curriculum that we could use as a framework and pick and choose from is the FLASH curriculum. And that's a curriculum that we've already had some.
That's an inappropriate title for a sex ed curriculum.
I mean,
Back to your point about there's something afoot, Steve.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah,
We need to be more careful about their choices.
well, that curriculum's been around for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And we utilized it in Federal Way, and it was actually developed through the King County Health Department.
Yeah. You guys think like middle school people. You're my peeps, man.
hey, that's what my wife says all the time. She can't stand having any middle schoolers with me in the group, man.
Yeah. And
my follow-up question for you, Steve.
Go ahead, George.
I know that according to the law, you can either have it kind of taught in one block, or you can use a cross-curricula approach. What are we thinking?
What I'm thinking at this point is involving our teachers, the experts in our system, to identify the aspects that we feel are necessary and appropriate at each grade level as a starting place, and then whatever input that we need from our community, from you as board members, we'll also obviously also solicit that. But I have a strong belief in our teachers that we have right now in our system, that they understand our community really well, and that we do have the right to determine. So for example, George, there's not an expectation where you meet all of these specific standards at each grade level. And so we have the ability to design that in terms of what that looks like, and it will be community friendly. And I have a great deal of confidence that that's where we're going to end up. You're muted, Lynn.
Wouldn't we use the curriculum adoption process so that there is a preview of materials? We go through the entire process. The board has a chance to look at materials before they're ever adopted. I mean,
Yeah.
They're talking about this as a curriculum, and we would want to be as thorough as we would with any other adoption, just not put it out to certain teachers, but go through a very, very formal process along with opportunity for input and review.
And it would also involve the instructional materials committee that is made up of staff members as well as community members. And they would be the ones making the recommendation for board for board approval.
And I know that there's community involvement in both places, but I feel like there was so much publicity around this initiative that we should probably even a separate community forum, or do an extra thorough job promoting the opportunities for community input. I feel like there was so much conversation around this, and we've got a lot of community members with opinions and questions. So when we do move forward, really underscore that community involvement part.
Yeah, it's definitely a powder keg that we want to be in front of, and that we want to, when it finally comes to the board for making a decision, that you're not going to be in a situation where they're going to be doing crazy things about your decision. So we'll definitely take our time and do a thorough job. And as you stated earlier, you're not necessarily going to make everybody happy, but I think we can get to a place where we can get to a good decision and make a rationale that will, that will keep it from being what it has the potential to be.
I think our goal should be to get through it without a protest.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's go for it.
That would be nice.
I thought we were going to start aiming for realistic goals.
George.
Is any other on that note? Is any other comments?
Just that I hope that the superintendent of public instruction and all of his people begin to do a better job of publicizing what this bill really is and the choices that are really there, so that it's going to be hard going uphill with the public concern that has come up from misunderstanding. So I hope that everybody works together on this one.
Yeah. And once again, the decision lands on us. So we carry the burden and the risk and the heat for people who don't agree with our path.
Definitely, you will get phone calls and emails.
Yep.
Well, guys, it's 6:43. Is there anything else before we adjourn the meeting? No, hearing none. We're going to call the meeting adjourned at 6:43 p.m. You guys have a good night.
Thanks,
Have a
Stanley.
good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.